Okay, recording. Lots of prayers. Oh, and there is Dee Becker. Okay, okay, and Dee is connecting. Just a sec. Okay, you want to? This is a day of very odd prayers. I mean, people have very odd health concerns.
I want to start by telling you, we talked to you about Jacob Ringenbach. You're aware of the cancer that he has. They've ceased any sort of treatment, but he had sepsis and pneumonia, and they had sort of prepared the family for that. He got better, and he was able to get out of the hospital, and he wanted to see fireworks. Here's Diane waiting to get it. He was able he wanted to see fireworks, and they were able to take him to see fireworks. And it's a gift. It is still, it is a horrible cancer that he has, but they were able to spend that time with him. And it's a gift. And then we have this other, you want to talk about Zachary because
So this is a friend of Cheryl who's online. Her, let me get this. Cheryl's daughter's coach's son. So anyhow, his name is Zachary and he's in the 5th grade. And he had pain in his ankle and his leg, and they thought it was plantar fasciitis for a 5th grader, and ended up being a blood infection that had him in ICU and very dire. But and Cheryl has asked us to lift him and his family up in prayers. And today in Facebook is a picture of him in a wheelchair being moved out of ICU into a normal room with a smile on his face. So once again, a strange diagnosis. And then the one we have to keep in our prayers is Jack and Laura Vogel. Jack and Laura are driving right now to go to, they're in New Jersey. That's why they're not online for a family reunion. And Jack has 2 daughters and his one daughter named Katie. Why don't you explain this?
She has a blastoma, and if you know, blastoma tends to be
Cancerous.
Well, it's cancer, but it's not malignant. It doesn't tend, but what it does do is spread and wrap around things. And hers is in her jaw, and it has wrapped around, and it's really a rare thing. And it's almost unheard of for it to be on both sides. And she just found out about this, but they're going to have to remove her entire lower jaw. And they're going to remake a new one out of her fibula, bone in your lower leg. It is a massive procedure. How long is she going to be in the operating room?
12 hours in the operating room, and recovery is like a year. I mean, they have to do a tracheotomy. They have to give her new teeth. She's 34 years old with, or 35 years old with a 5-year-old or 4-year-old daughter. So please keep her in your prayers. She's going to have the surgery at MD Anderson and in the early part of August. So we will keep up, but I know both Laura and Jack would appreciate your prayers.
And Carol has just been feeling really bad. She's been under the weather and everything else. And remember, Carol Kutnick. But we have reached a point now where people recognize that we believe the things we say, that we pray and we're getting requests. And that's it's a difficult position to be in. And it's easy to say, I'll pray for you. It's another thing to take time and talk to God about these people. Try to remember this Jacob that we've kept in prayer for a while. This family is just really going through a difficult time. But don't forget things like when we see this, when they get to have this time with him, it's a blessing. God, we're always thankful for the gifts, for the blessings, for the presence. And we try not to forget to praise you and to thank you for who you are, for the grace that you extend to us, so that we remember to try and carry that, to bestow it, to show it to those around us. We're still so heavy-hearted about Jacob and his family. And you know the plan, but you also know that they need relief. They need your touch. And Zachary and his family, these strange diagnoses, we see so much of this, and it is hard on the families. We pray for relief for them. For Carol, who's been so under the weather, your touch, your hand, your understanding, you know we enjoy having her with us. We're thankful. We know that you love us. We understand that. And we know that you bring certain people to us, to our lives, to our attention. And help us to remember to talk, to lift them up in prayers, but also, whenever possible, to meet needs, to find ways to touch them the same way that we feel your touch. And as we study these things, help us to get out of the lessons, out of the scriptures, those things that bring us into closer connection and closer faith to your workings in this world. Amen.
And a happy birthday to Paula Dean.
Paula Dean, is
This
Paula? Oh, yeah, there
She
she
is.
is. Happy birthday, Paula, this week. What's that? Oh, from everybody.
From
Yeah.
everybody, yes.
Yep.
So where we left off, this is week 12 on Jacob, which I told Scott is pretty ironic, since Jacob 12 sons became the 12 tribes of Israel, and this is our 12th week of studying Jacob, and we think it is our last week of studying Jacob. Just to give you a little what's next on this survey, or next on our study list. We're going to study Matthew. We're going to go to the New Testament and study Matthew. Matthew starts his gospel with the genealogy of Jesus and goes back to these 12 tribes. So we thought that was a good connection. And just to give you a preview of the future, we hope in September to do a study on where the Bible came from. We did this numerous years ago, and we think we're better suited to do it now.
Yeah, that actually is a really good study. It's about the scriptures. How accurate are they? Where do they come from? And it's actually really helpful. It helped us when we did a long time ago. It's to have some better, maybe, confidence in what it is you're reading. So
where did we leave off on Jacob? We left off on Genesis 47. And we had finished 47. I'm going to go back and read one quote from it. Jacob had moved his entire family. Remember, there were 70 of them listed in Genesis, to Egypt, and they settled in the region of Goshen, which is in Egypt. And I'm going to read Genesis 47, verses 27 through 28. Now the Israelites settled in the land of Egypt, in the region of Goshen. They acquired property there and became fruitful and increased greatly in number. And Jacob lived in the land of Egypt 17 years, and the length of his life was 147 years. So that's where we left off. We also Joseph promised Jacob that he would bring his body back to Israel after he died. So we have Jacob at 147, and he is basically dying. And we're going to start at Genesis 48. Do you want to add anything before I get started?
No.
Okay. Sometime later, Joseph was told, "Your father is ill." So he set out with his two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. When Jacob was told, "Your son Joseph has come to you," Israel rallied his strength and sat up in bed. Jacob said to Joseph, "God Almighty appeared to me at Luz in the land of Canaan, and there he blessed me and told me, 'Behold, I will make you fruitful and multiply you. I will make you a multitude of peoples and will give this land to your descendants after you as an everlasting possession. And now your two sons born to you in Egypt before I came to you, here shall be reckoned as mine. Ephraim and Manasseh shall be mine, just as Reuben and Simeon are mine. Any children born to you after them shall be yours, and they shall be called by your names, shall be called by the names of their brothers in the territory they inherit."
Let's go with that.
Okay.
So the first part of this, and I love the image of this. They tell Joseph, "Your father's ill," and this is it indicates it's gravely ill, and Joseph is running a country, remember, but he drops everything and goes to his father down in Goshen, and it says that Jacob rallies his strength and sits up in bed. And that gives you some idea how sick he was, but you know, he's not even been sitting up. But this is so important. He rallies his strength. He sits up in bed, and talks to him, makes him pray. He's made him promise that he'll carry the body. But then he says, this is a really strange thing. Joseph has two sons who he's brought with him. And he says that your two sons are going to be counted as if they're mine. Now, you know about the 12 tribes, and he has 12 sons. And how does this not make 14? And we're gonna get to that. But he says, these two boys of yours are going to be counted as if they're my sons, just like Reuben and Simeon, as if they were absolutely my sons. Now, he doesn't pick Reuben and Simeon by accident, because if you remember, Reuben's the one who went and slept with his father's concubine, which is an act of saying, I'm taken over. And Simeon is one of the ones that went and killed all of those people. They tricked them and then just killed off all those people in that town. So he mentions those two. He says, these two boys are going to be counted as if they were my sons. We hear so much about birthright, but you remember Jacob himself got the birthright when he wasn't the oldest, didn't he? If you go back a generation, Abraham had Ishmael first and then Isaac, and yet Isaac gets the birthright. So a lot of the things that we just sort of take for granted, you find out are not necessary. It doesn't always turn out that way. But the way the birthright works, if there are multiple sons, the eldest gets a double portion. So if there are 3 children, 3 sons, divide everything by 4, and the eldest gets 2 parts, and each of the other ones get 1. Does that make sense? Well, what he's done here, and I told you way back when all this stuff happened, that Reuben, who was the eldest, did this thing that he did, that there was a consequence for it. And this is the consequence. Reuben does not get the birthright blessing. He doesn't get the double portion. And what happens is Joseph essentially gets 2 shares because of these 2 sons. So this is, in effect, the birthright blessing, and he gives it to Joseph's 2 sons. And he says, these 2 are not your sons anymore. They're going to be counted as if they're mine. Your other children, your other sons will be under the tribe of their two brother, or the tribes of their two brothers. Does that make sense? It's a very strange thing that's going on here.
And a couple of things, Joseph, remember, is actually the 11th child of Jacob. He is the firstborn of Rachel, which was his favorite wife, but he is his 11th child that he is basically giving the birthright to.
But then the other thing, and this starts in, I guess, the 3rd verse. And he reminds Joseph, he says, God Almighty, that's El Shaddai, appeared to me in the land of Canaan, and there he blessed me. And he said, behold, I will make you fruitful and multiply you. This is the promise of Abraham. And it's carried down. It's carried down through Isaac, and it's carried down through Jacob. And we talked a lot about this at the beginning, the fact that this is the original promise to Abraham, and he has followed through with it and given the same assurances to these descendants of the lineage. Don't forget, this is the lineage of the Messiah. This is the family through which the blessing comes. And now he's reminding Joseph, God himself appeared to me and said, I will make you a great nation, and I will make you be fruitful and multiply. Okay, he knows he's dying, and he's reminding now the next in line, because this is the real birthright blessing, the double portion. He's reminding him of who they are and what's been promised, what God himself has promised to them. I will make you a multitude of peoples. I will give this land to your descendants after you as an everlasting possession. So,
and two other things to remember. Remember that Jacob and Israel are the same person, and they go back and forth, and we can't figure out any rhyme or reason why they say Jacob versus they say Israel. So it can go back and forth in the same paragraph. The other thing to remember is, remember that Jacob had these two sons in Egypt, that the Pharaoh had given him the priest's daughter, basically, who was an Egyptian. And his oldest son was Manasseh, and that meant God has made me forget all the hardships and all my father's household. And the name Ephraim, which was his second son, was God has made me fruitful in the land of my affliction.
Yep, and you see all of these things coming to have more and more meaning. The big thing is God has promised them this land up in Canaan, and they're in Egypt. And Jacob's well aware of that, yet he doesn't waver in the idea that that land that was promised to them is theirs, and they're going to inhabit it as, you know, a multitude of people. And he's just making sure that Joseph remembers it. It's an important thing. Sometimes we get put in places and it's hard to remember the promises of God. It's hard to cling to those. And what you see with Jacob is that Jacob is saying, don't forget.
Chapter 48, verse 7. Now, as for me, when I was returning from Padan, to my sorrow, Rachel died along the way in the land of Canaan, some distance from Ephrath. So I buried her there beside the road of Ephrath, that is Bethlehem. When Israel saw the sons of Joseph, he asked, who are these? Joseph said to his father, these are the sons God has given me in this place. So Jacob said, please bring them to me, that I may bless them. Now Israel's eyesight was poor because of his old age. He could hardly see. Joseph brought his sons to him, and his father kissed them and embraced them. I never expected to see your face again, Israel said to Joseph, but now God has let me see your children as well. Then Joseph removed his sons from his father's knees and bowed face down. Stop there. Or keep going.
Oh, either way.
Okay. And Joseph took both of them, with Ephraim in his right hand towards Israel's left hand, and Manasseh in his left hand towards Israel's right hand and brought them close to him. But Israel stretched out his right hand and put it on the head of Ephraim, the younger, and crossing his hands, he put his left hand on Manasseh's head, although Manasseh was the firstborn.
So after this, him reminding him of the blessings, he sees Joseph's two sons. And I love this too. This is one of those things. He says, who are these? Who are these? And it's kind of like you see grandkids for the first time or first time in a long time. Or what. Who are these young men? As if he doesn't know. Of course he knows, but these are human beings. And of course, Joseph says, well, they're the sons that God has given me in this place. And as Mary reminded you of the names, Joseph gives them names even that are a constant reminder that God has given him these sons in this place. And it says Israel, that's Jacob. His eyesight was poor because of his old age. He could hardly see Joseph. Joseph brought his sons to him, and his father kissed them and embraced them. So now remember when Jacob got his birthright. Remember Jacob and Esau? And he went in with the skin on, the goat skin, and his father even smelled him because he couldn't see him. And he recognized the smell of the animal, and he says, no, that's gotta be Esau. And here we have the same thing playing out. We have Jacob now so old that he can't really see the kids well enough. Yeah. And he's gonna bless them. And it feels so much like the time where, when he was getting that birthright. And Jacob says to his son, I never thought I'd see you again. I thought I had seen your face for the last time. And now I've lived long enough to see your sons. And so he calls them up to bless them. And he does this odd thing. He said, Joseph tells him which one is which. And he lines them up so that the oldest winds up at the right hand, which is how the oldest gets the birthright blessing. And the youngest is at his left hand. And Jacob leans out and crosses his hands over and puts the opposite hand, he puts the right hand on the youngest boy. He's giving the birthright blessing to the youngest. And remember, Joseph himself is not the oldest. This is all out of order, isn't it? I mean, this is not what we're told about. The oldest son always gets this. Keep in mind that this lineage is the lineage of the Messiah. Esau wasn't fit. He didn't have the belief, but he didn't have the temperament. Esau sold his birthright for a pot of stew. He didn't take it seriously. And through this whole thing, we have seen that the plan is for this line of the Messiah to go down through certain individuals. And so Joseph is not first in line. He's not even second in line.
11th.
He's 11th. And the blessing is coming through him to the two boys. And at the last moment, Jacob says, no, the younger one is the one who's going to get the blessing that the eldest would normally get. And Joseph says, no,
We're not doing it.
oh, okay, we'll go ahead. I like to skip ahead.
Yeah.
Before we go on, is this birthright Jewish law, or is it coming straight from God? And so when you start changing, is that, obviously it's the plan from God, but I mean, even Joseph objects, hey, you got the wrong guy. He said, no, I don't.
We're about to cover that part because I got in trouble, but I'll tell, is it Jewish law? Remember, there is no Jewish law at this point. There are customs, and there are, the customs sounds like I'm weakening what's going on here, and I'm not. These things, if you're really trying to stay with God's will, a lot of the time that's how the customs come about. How exactly do they evolve? Gene, we don't know. it's not codified law, like we get from the legislature. And later things do get written down that way. But the idea of the firstborn is a custom that's not just Jewish. Because what happens is, if you don't have some sort of rules, and you have sons fighting with sons and killing each other off, it's chaos. So it's not Jewish law as such, but it's recognized that's how things are supposed to happen. But as happens, the old saying that says, if you want to hear God laugh, tell him your plans, right? And you so often we wind up making plans, and then I experience it. Certainly God says, yeah, no, see, you need to do over here, you need to do this. And so even though technically maybe it's right for the oldest to get the birthright, this is clearly at the God's leading to tell Jacob, and this is getting close to Jacob's last act. This is an important final thing. And the idea, I'm going to let Mary read, because if I skip ahead a third time, I'm in trouble. But not law yet.
So we're on chapter 48, verse 15. One thing I just want to note is how many times it goes back from Israel to Jacob. And it hit me this week that maybe it's a note for all of us that we're really supposed to study the Bible, because if someone would just picked up this Bible and read it, and it went back from Joseph to Israel, they wouldn't know who they're talking about. None of it would make any sense. So anyhow, that's a commercial for that. So first of all, he's going to bless Joseph before. So Jacob is blessing his son before he blesses his grandsons, which he has now made his sons. Verse 15. Then he blessed Joseph and said, may the God before whom my fathers Abraham and Isaac walked, the God who has been my shepherd all my life to this day, the angels who has redeemed me from all harm, may he bless these boys, and may they be called by my name and the names of my fathers Abraham and Isaac, and may they grow into a multitude upon the earth. When Joseph saw that his father had placed his right hand on Ephraim's head, he was displeased and took his father's hand to move it from Ephraim's head to Manasseh's. Not so, my father, Joseph said. This one is the firstborn. Put your right hand on his head. But his father refused. I know, my son, I know, he said. He too shall become a people, and he too shall be great. Nevertheless, his younger brother shall be greater than he, and his offsprings shall become a multitude of nations. So that day, Jacob blessed them and said, by you shall Israel pronounce this blessing. May God make you like Ephraim and Manasseh. So he put Ephraim before Manasseh. Then Israel said to Joseph, look, I'm about to die, but God will be with you and bring you back to the land of your fathers. And to you, as one who is above your brothers, I give the ridge of land that I took from the Amorites with my sword and bow.
So he puts his hand on the two boys, the wrong hands, that he thinks, and he blesses Joseph first. And it's an odd thing because Joseph is one of the 12, and he's one of the brothers, and yet he's taken on a different place. He's now, the head of all the operations in Egypt. And instead, the blessing is passed down to the two boys, but he doesn't forget Joseph. And this is a very odd relationship, a very odd arrangement. But he pronounces this blessing. He says, may the God before whom my fathers Abraham and Isaac walked. And here's this lineage, the promise begins with Abraham, goes down to Isaac, and now through him, the God who has been my shepherd all my life to this day. And it's a beautiful remembrance that it has been God leading him on this entire journey the whole time, from the beginning until this day, which he knows is now, coming to an end. The angel who has redeemed me from all harm. And there's this use of angel. And I want to, I've tried to do that before. People try and pick apart when it says that Jacob wrestled with an angel. Was he really wrestling with God himself? What this, is also a difficult thing for us. What he's saying here is this angel, we have this idea of a being that is certainly greater than us, who looks over us. And so using the word angel does not indicate, oh, now we can make a cookbook out of this. God is really just the most powerful angel. God is God. Try not to get too hung up in words when you see what the words mean. And he's saying that God has looked over him and kept him from harm over and over again through this 140-year-long journey. That's what's important. That's what he's recognizing. And he's reminding his son of that at the end. And he says, so may that God bless these boys, and may they be called by my name. And this is in the form of a blessing. This now becomes formalized. They're going to be called by my name as if they were my sons, and may they grow into a multitude on the earth. And this is where I said, Joseph looks at this and he says, hey, no, wait a minute, Dad. You got your hands on the wrong heads. You got your right hand on the youngest. And Joseph says, yeah, I know. I understand. And I'm not taking anything away from the oldest. I'm not. He's blessed too. And he's going to become the father of a nation. But the younger will be greater, and the younger will be the lineage of Messiah. Don't ever forget, that's what this is about. And we tend to treat these things like competition. If somebody gets more than we have, they get more than they have coming. Wait a minute, the oldest is entitled. Well, you're not entitled to anything. It's a gift from God. And he says, I know what I'm doing. I know I'm blind, but I know which is which. The youngest is going to be the greater on this. And I can't do anything about it. And this is Isaac and Ishmael. This is Jacob and Esau. And this is Manasseh and Ephraim. And there's no shame. There's no insult in it. It is simply, this is God's plan being followed. And of course, Joseph doesn't have any real choice but to accept it. You did get?
Yeah, I got it.
Well, he does say that because of this blessing, people are going to say, may God make you like Ephraim and Manasseh. So these two are being sort of recognized out of the multitude, out of the 12 tribes, out of the 12 sons. People are going to say they're going to be so successful. May God make you just like these two boys were. It's a powerful blessing. Israel said to Joseph, look, I'm about to die, but God will be with you and bring you back to the land of our fathers. He's reiterating the promise that God has made, that this land up, around Canaan is theirs. Even though they're in Egypt, even though Joseph is the head guy practically, right under the king, don't get too comfy. This is not our home. Now, Joseph he doesn't live long enough. They're going to be in Egypt 400 years. 400. The Jews play the long game. I always tell you, they don't forget this is not our home. 400 years, this is 2023. Go back to 1623. and try and tell people in 1623, hang in there, God has blessed us. It's not going to happen for a while. It's going to be in 2023. This is what's going on. You have to put it in perspective.
So Dan
400
and I,
years.
it's 1900 years before Christ was born. That's when this is happening. And the map we're going to show you where these 12 tribes were created were 500 years later, you guys, was in 1400 BC. So still 1,400 years before Christ. I mean, we just have such a short time.
We do tend to have a short perspective, but the last thing, and I want to, because this last word in here. So Joseph, it almost seems like he's left out, right? I mean, the two boys get the blessing. Joseph's not left out. Joseph's being blessed through the two boys. They are literally becoming like brothers in this case. But he finally, the last thing that he says, look, I'm about to die. God will bring you, but he's going to bring you home. And I will give a spoiler. They actually take Joseph's body home to Canaan, to what we call Israel. But he says, and to you, this is to Joseph, who is above your brothers. So you see what he's done. He's elevated Joseph, even though he didn't receive, he's not going to have a tribe named after him. You're really the birthright child. To you who is above your brothers, you're not left out. This is not a slight to you. And I'm going to give you the ridge of land that I took from the Amorites with my sword and bow. So this is sort of a personal gift. It's one piece of land, relatively small, but it has meaning, and it has meaning to Jacob. And he says, for you, and Joseph will never see it. Joseph will never go there. But this is personal between Jacob and his son Joseph. And he says, I took this piece of land myself with my own sword and bow, and I'm giving you that so there's this recognition. And it's important, I think, always to remember these are human beings, just like we are. We study people in the Bible and they become like icons. They become figureheads. They're two-dimensional.
Statues.
Statues, they're not two-dimensional. They're human beings. And so Joseph is not receiving the birthright blessing, but he says, look, Joseph, you're important to me. And I'm giving you something from the heart. I'm giving you a piece of land that's going to be in just your family and maybe, the other boys, but it's something that I took myself. It's a beautiful gesture. And we see those things, we receive those things, and it's easy to overlook.
Okay.
Scott, is there any string of thought in the crossing of the hands? Because everybody was expecting the older guy, even Joseph, the firstborn, to get the blessing. That was the custom. And then Grandpa, it's the wrong guy, and I know what I'm doing, which is following a eternal plan, a God plan, not a human custom or law. Because he's got salvation in mind, Jesus, not the piece of land which you got. Hey, I'm glad to give it to you, but just land.
Yes.
We're talking about Jesus that's coming and saving all of us. Is that?
It is the lineage of the Messiah, absolutely. And the crossing of the hands is simply because Joseph knows that the firstborn is the one that the right hand rests on at the time of the blessing. So Joseph, it tells us, sets him up so that the oldest comes in onto his father's right hand side. And I don't think there's any significance in the cross. I just think that he says, I know what you did there, but that's not the way this is going to work out. What is important is that Jacob, this is prophecy. This is Jacob absolutely literally delivering a word from God that it's going to be the youngest who's going to be the one that carries down this lineage. That's the important message. And it is absolutely part of the long plan to bring about Messiah, to bring about, we say, Christ, who is the reconciliation between God and man. Absolutely never forget that. This is a, like a milestone in that journey.
Okay, we're gonna pull up a map now. Can you do, I can do that, I guess. And while I'm reading 49, and like I said, what I want you to realize is that this map, which is one of the best ones we could find, because each of the maps are gonna, you were sharing the screen, okay. Each of the maps are gonna be a little bit different, but this map, these 12 tribes were created from Joshua when they come back into the promised land after being slaves in Egypt, and it's 500 years altogether later. So this map was created 500 years later, okay? That just blows me away. Now, Jacob is gonna bless all of the sons. I'm in Genesis 49, chapter 49, verse 1. Then Jacob called for his sons and said, gather around me so that I can tell you what will happen to you in the days to come.
We're gonna have to move through this if we're gonna get done.
Right.
But this is prophecy by Jacob. This is Jacob foretelling the future about what each one of these sons and their tribes have in store for them. And it is uncanny how this works out. These words are much older, much older than the reality that comes about. He prophesies very accurately.
Come together and listen, O sons of Jacob. Listen to your father Israel. Reuben, you are my firstborn, my might, and the beginning of my strength, excelling in honor, excelling in power, uncontrolled as the waters. You will no longer excel, because you went up to your father's bed, onto my couch, and defiled it. So he ends up, do you want to say just one quick thing? He ends up on the other side of the Jordan.
Yeah, and he says, you're my firstborn, you're the beginning of my strength, but you're wild, you're uncontrolled. You've always been what do you call it? Not effective, powerful. You've been
Uncontrolled, and you will just
excel. You've always excelled. You will no longer excel. And it's because what you did. Now, we have this tendency to want to say, God loves us. God is love. God loves, no matter what we do, God loves us. And it's true. But there are also consequences. And I mentioned this back when we were earlier going through when these things happen. There are consequences for it. And what Reuben did doesn't come without consequence. And as it happens later, when they come out of Egypt, live over on the opposite side of the Jordan, when they finally come sweeping in and take their land back, Reuben and his tribe.
Reuben is long since dead.
That's
Reuben's
right.
people.
His people say, we kind of like it here among the Moabites. Can we just stay on the opposite side? And they do, and they fade away. And they're never heard, they just don't get heard from. There is no prophet, no judge, no military leader. There's no one from the tribe of Reuben who's ever mentioned prominently ever in the history of Israel. So he just fades into the woodwork, if you will. And Jacob not only prophesies it, but he tells him it's because of what you did.
Simeon and Levi are brothers. Their swords are weapons of violence. May I never enter their council. May I never join their assembly. For they killed men in their anger and hamstringed oxen on a whim. Cursed be their anger, for it is strong, and their wrath, for it is cruel. I will disperse them in Jacob and scatter them in Israel.
So here comes the other two, the ones who killed all those people. And I told you then, I said they get cut out of the will, kind of, and it's not exactly that, but there's a consequence for what they do. And their anger, he says, they killed men in anger. And Gene said this morning, you know, it was because of what was done to their sister, and it was justified. Well, first of all, they killed the whole city. They killed everybody. And second of all, it wasn't justice, it was murder. It was revenge. It was retribution. And they did it in anger. And it says hamstrung oxen on a whim. These are violent, angry men. And, you know, may I never come into your counsel. He is getting them told. Mary and I talked this week as we studied. There are some businesses where it seems like everyone is friendly. Discount Tire used to be that way. I shopped there because everyone was helpful. They didn't cheat you. And I always said that in a company, when I see the employees behave like that, it's because the person at the top exemplifies it. There are within countries, within regions, there are traits that are amazing. We can get to that another time. But these two sons, with what they did, going in and tricking those people and killing everyone, when they'd given their word, we're going to be joined as one people. It was a very effective way to kill a lot of people. And Jacob says, for what you've done, for who you are, may I never come into your counsel. May I never, in other words, I don't want anything to do with that kind of violence. I don't even want my name to be associated with it. So he says, I will disperse you in Israel. And what happens is Levi, his line becomes the priest, and they don't even get a land grant. They do not get land of their own. Now, I think it's kind of weird that they become the priest, and maybe we talk about that another time, but they are dispersed.
So there's no tribe named Levi. If you look up the 12 tribes of Israel, there's no tribe named Levi.
Well, okay,
Yeah,
but they don't get land.
Yeah, you don't get land.
And then the other one, Simeon, gets land, but he gets a little donut hole
In the middle of Judah.
in the middle of Judah. And the understanding is his tribe is going to be absorbed into Judah. They will fade away and cease to exist. And it's because you think about who this family is, lineage of Messiah, that kind of anger and hate and killing is not who we're supposed to be. And that's not who they were supposed to be. And this is prophecy. It is pronouncement. Jacob is not making this happen. Jacob is saying, this is the way it is. So there's those three that we talked about.
Yeah, so of the 12, Joseph doesn't get a region. Okay, so you take 12 minus Joseph, you add his two sons, you go from 12 minus 1 is 11, plus 2 is 13, and then Levi doesn't get land at all. The rest of them do. So those are the 12 tribes. You'll never see Joseph or Levi having a geographic area, and you'll have Manasseh and Ephraim. And now I'm going to read through the rest of them.
You guys can't see it, but Mary keeps elbowing me to say, shut up, don't add anything here. We're moving on.
We have one more thing to talk about, is Judah. Okay, I'm on verse 8. Judah, your brothers shall praise you. Your hand shall be the necks of your enemies, and your father's sons will bow down to you. Judah is a young lion, my son. Judah is a young lion. My son, you return from the prey. Like a lion, he crouches and lies down, like a lioness who dares to rouse him. The scepter will not depart from Judah, nor the staff from between his feet, until Shiloh comes, and the allegiance of the nations is his. He ties his donkey to the vine, his colt to the choicest branch. He washes his garment in wine, his robes in the blood of grapes. His eyes are darker than wine, and his teeth are whiter than milk.
So Judah, Jesus is descended from Judah. That's, you just start right there. King David, Jesus is the lineage of David, and they're the lineage of Judah. After a while, Israel splits into two nations, the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. The southern kingdom gets hauled off into captivity. Judah holds out. Judah becomes synonymous with the entire southern region. And it says, the scepter shall not depart. So Judah and his tribe really are the strength, the Lion of Judah. They are the strength of Israel for 1,000 years, more than 1,000 years. And he says that you're a young lion, like who dares to rouse him? You're going to be the strength of this nation. And it absolutely comes to pass. And what it says is the scepter, which is the sign of kingship, shall not depart from your people until Shiloh comes. And that's a whole other word story, but it's absolutely understood that is Christ. That is the Messiah. And when the Messiah comes, it says the allegiance of the people will belong to him. Judah's going to be in charge until then, until the coming of Messiah. And it's a long, long time. And it does turn out that way. You also notice
1900 years.
1900 years, give or take, but who's counting? You also notice he talks about he'll wash your robes in wine. The idea being you'll be wealthy. You'll be able to if you can afford to do whatever. So wine is expensive, but you're going to be successful. And it also describes his looks, and his hair and his teeth are white. When you look further, later down, when they describe King David, David's a good looking guy. And there is a physical trait that runs through this tribe, and it comes to pass. And you think, well, why would that be in there? I don't know why it's in there, except this is prophecy. And Jacob is literally saying what will be, and it is. It becomes.
Zebulun shall dwell by the seashore and become a harbor for ships. His border shall extend to Sinon. Issachar is a strong donkey lying down between the sheepfolds. He saw that his resting place was good and that his land was pleasant. He bent his shoulders to the burden and submitted to labor as a servant.
Stop right there if you would. Zebulun, we just don't have time to go into. There are people that try and debunk the Bible, and it's a long story, but Zebulun, his lands extend from the Mediterranean. Yeah, you want to move the mouse and maybe I know you can't read this, but
From here, here.
up there, you
Yeah,
see
from
the
there to
Dead Sea, the Galilee, and the land extends over to the Mediterranean, and they become shipbuilders. The next one, though, where it says Issachar is a strong donkey. If you raise sheep, you understand that watchdogs are kind of handy. But if you want a really good watchdog, you want a donkey, right, Gene?
So
People still use them. They are great at protecting a flock. I mean, exceptional at protecting a flock. And that's what he's saying. You're going to be that kind of a watchdog, and you're going to see that your place is good. And I want you to look at verse 20, is it 20, 25, 15? 15. He saw that his resting place was good. You notice how it's talking about it past tense? He saw that his resting place was good and that his land was pleasant. So he bent his shoulder to the burden and submitted to labor as a servant. And this comes to be, but first I want to tell you, this is prophecy. And it's talking about it in the past tense. And I've become convinced over time that people who receive this kind of word, this kind of prophecy, it's a strange relationship with time. And they sometimes see things as if they've already happened because they are that certain to occur that they literally look at it and say, to them, it's like it's already come into being. And this happens often with really, real strong prophecy. They'll talk about it past tense. But what he says is, he sees that the land, though his place is so good, that when the time comes, he will become a servant. He will accept being ruled by someone else and just to stay where he is. And it indeed happens.
Dan shall provide justice for his people as one of the tribes of Israel. He will be a snake by the road, a viper in the path that bites the horse's heel so that its riders tumble backwards. I await your salvation, O Lord. Gad will be attacked by raiders, but will attack their heels. Asher's food will be rich. He shall provide royal delicacies. Naphtali is a doe set free that bears beautiful fawns. Joseph is a fruitful vine by a spring, whose branches scale the walls. The archers attacked him with bitterness. They aim at him in hostility, yet he steadied his bow, and his strong arms were tempered. By the hands of the mighty one of Jacob, in the name of the shepherd, the rock of Israel. By the God of your father who helps you, and by the Almighty who blesses you, with blessings of the heavens above, with blessings of the depths below, with blessings of the breast and the womb. The blessings of your father have surpassed the blessings of the ancient mountains and the bounty of the everlasting hills. May they rest on the head of Joseph, on the brow of the prince of his brothers. Benjamin is a ravenous wolf. In the morning, he devours the prey. In the evening, he divides the plunder. These are the tribes of Israel, 12 in all. And this was what his father said to them. He blessed them, and he blessed each one with a suitable blessing.
Let's
And
take
that's
the
where we're
map
at.
off in a second. Yeah,
Yeah.
but hold on. I just want you
Okay.
to see the different colors. These are lands that are assigned, and boundaries change over time. You know, these things shift a little bit, I would say, but this is the basic layout of how the lands were to be given out to the tribes, to the children, the sons, and they stretch the Galilee at the top, the Dead Sea at the bottom. They stretch out mostly along the Jordan. But let's go ahead and click off of that. We're going to have to close it down.
Yeah.
Jacob, though, pronounces this as a blessing, and may they be bestowed through Joseph and the prince of his two sons. And there you see the blessing, the real blessing is this lineage of the Messiah. And that's going through Joseph. It's going through his two sons. They each wind up receiving land. They each get, recognized, but there's something special about what's recognized for Joseph and that continued lineage and that promise. And when he finished instructing them, you didn't read that, or did you? When Jacob had finished instructing his sons, he pulled his feet.
No, we didn't read him dying yet. We stopped
Okay,
it. We're
sorry.
gonna start there next week.
Next week, we're
It's
gonna do
10
another
o'clock.
week?
It's 10
Okay,
o'clock.
we're gonna do another week.
Yeah.
Well, then maybe
So,
we'll have time to talk about some of
Yeah.
these blessings. This is incredible prophecy, okay? It really, really is. And it's some of the things he says that, this one, Naphtali is a doe that has beautiful children. And you don't see a lot other than you guys are, relatively carefree. You have a different place. And he names personality traits that get carried down. It is incredible prophecy. And this is him at the very end of his life, taking care of one last thing, which is another theme that I keep bringing to you, that Samuel does it, Moses does it, Joshua does it, Jacob does it, Jesus does this at the very end.
so we are gonna do, or wrap up next week and do the death of both Jacob and Joseph and finish the end of Genesis. So we will finish the rest of 49 and 50. And next week, our grandbaby is going to be at Bible study. So any of you online who wants to come in person, and our daughter will be here and her partner, but mainly our grandbaby Finley. She's the one that counts. No, sorry.
While we were online, I got a text from Cindy Duck. Please pray for Mark Johnston, please. We'll get more details, but I will tell you, I always like to know when I can. Some people don't like to be called up by name, but when I can, I like to know the name. I think it's important that we recognize that these are people and not just saying, hey, we have some good thoughts. These people get brought to us. They get placed in our path. They get put in our hearts, and it's good for us to remember them. God, we see in the words that you leave behind the plan. We see the surety of your promises. They're promises that we're given, and we need to see in the examples in the scriptures left behind, the faithfulness, the fact that you keep your promises. And we also see the consequences, and we see the responsibilities that you give to those that you make your promises to. And I would ask you, make us mindful of that you, through this, remind us to pay attention to those parts too, that we have responsibility, that we have a mission, we have a calling, and to make us aware, to give us those reminders that say, I need to do my part as well. This one Mark Johnston that Cindy has on her heart, we pray for him. We have no details, but you know our hearts, you know Cindy's, you know the person. As always, I pray that you be with us. We're sent out, we interact with people, and we need to see each time we have these opportunities to show the love and the grace that you show us. Keep us safe this week. Stay with the families of those that we pray for. Amen.
Okay, you guys can unmute yourself. Great, thank you.
Is anybody there? You're
Yeah,
unmuted?
no.
Hey.
yeah. Yeah,
Mary, hey, it's Diane. How are you?
Good, see
Diane.
ya.
Good to see you. I was gonna
How are
ask you, can you send that map to us in email? Is it in a PDF or something?
Yes, yeah. we'll send it
I'd love to see
you
that.
better.
I
Yeah.
have another document too that has to do with the tribes. And we'll send both of those this week. I mean, I think that they're really, if you're interested in that sort of thing, they're really interesting.
Yeah, I'd love to get that. Thank you.
I don't think it's there anymore, though.
Well,
Have a wonderful week and enjoy that wonderful weather, Virginia. We're jealous.
Kay,
Need to come
good to see you.
on 5 days.
We actually got to see you on camera for a bit. It was good to see you, Kay. And Virginia, who's with you?
This is my friend Gail. She's from
Hi.
Dallas, and her husband Mason. They're and they're from Dallas. Friends of ours. They came up to visit.
There
Oh,
you
it's
go.
good to have you
Thank
with us.
You
nice.
guys enjoy.
No Coco.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody. Have a
Bye.
great week.